Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam Ship My Money Share as we're looking at an intriguing Saturday slate that's all over the place. We have one 1 o'clock game, three 4 o'clock games, a 6 o'clock game, and a very robust main slate with 10 games. So it looks like everybody's ignoring that 1 o'clock game. We're going to punt on that as well because, of course, a lot of things can change with almost every team in action tonight. 13 teams going tonight. I think it was the Angels, and I forget who had the night off. And then there was the Chicago game against St. Louis earlier today. Kyle Hendricks trolled everybody. I believe I saw something go across Twitter, Adam. He needed 81 pitches to shut out the Cardinals.
Yeah, and Siege and I have him on our season-long NFBC main event team, so neither of us wanted him, but we'll take that.
Hey, yeah, maybe he's a hot commodity, of course. When you're playing NFBC, it's not like there's any weak links in the rest of your league. So good luck pawning him off. But maybe
you can't trade anyway.
Oh, you can. Oh, can you? Oh, this is the one where you can just do pickups with Fab, right?
Yeah, that's how I think all their leagues are.
Okay, I always forget. I have not played one of those, but that one seems interesting. The season long leagues I am in with Fab. I'm in a few industry leagues with some other DFS personalities, and one of them we're playing FanDuel scoring head to head. Siege is in that one with me. I ran through the regular season last year and then ended up getting fourth in the playoffs, which sucked because I didn't win any money. This year I am averaging there's 14 teams. I am averaging the third and a half highest score each week. I am 1-3. Not good times.
With head-to-head season.
Yeah, that's the one sad part. But it's fun scoring because you can't when you end up with those guys like Pena or Barria or whomever, these random guys, Chirinos, you know about, but some of these other guys that get these start or they come in as the long reliever, those don't count. So we back those points out manually. So it looks like you're winning, and then they're like, oh, stat correction, EMAC, I'm sorry, you don't get those 30 points. You lose. But anyway, good times there, but not really. It's all right. It's all fun. It's fantasy baseball. It's a good time. But we're going to cover the 4 afternoon games. You're going to get Jake Hari and myself for the DFS strategy show at 11:15. That's right. Adam gets every other Saturday off going forward, but he's still going to be right in the deep dive. And then you will get myself and Chris Spags for the robust 10-game slate. We will be starting promptly, like for real promptly, not Asimo, former fan vice promptly, but we're starting at 6 so we can get through all 10 games. It's a 7:05 start, so we shouldn't have any problems. A couple weeks ago, we did an 8-game slate in 20 minutes and then had 40 minutes for questions. So we'll see what happens there, but it should be good. And then Chris and Jake are going to be alternating weeks. And then Josh and I will be on Sundays. And then coming up in the middle of the summer, my busy time at the day job is happening. So someone else will be filling in for me. We will see what happens there. But let's talk about Saturday thus far, Adam. We have, let's see. The first game is that 1 o'clock game. We'll have projections. Jake and I will talk about this at the 10:15 show, but we have a little bit of potential weather there. It's Jake Odorizzi going against J.A. Happ. That one's in New York. It's going to be 63 at first pitch and 4.1 implied run total for the Twins. 4.5 for the Yankees, but we're going to have to see who's in the lineup. We may get Miguel Andujar back. You may get DJ LeMahieu. He's banged up, so we'll just have to see what happens on that. So Adam and I are just going to focus on the next 4 because there are some big contests out there because the sites do have some time for these to fill. So they look to be a little larger than the normal, quote, early Saturday action here. But Adam, we've got Michael Wacha against Yu Darvish. Darvish been a bit of a mess, but he has seemingly pulled out of the nosedive. He may not crash into the mountains. But what are you thinking about him going against the Redbirds on Saturday as our top pitcher on the slate?
Top pitcher other than Carrasco, right?
Well, other than Carrasco, but we'll get to him sooner.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't missed something with Cleveland. But yeah, so I think it's an interesting spot for Darvish. He has issues. Of course, he has trouble throwing strikes. He gets beat up by left-handed power. But most of this Cardinals team is right-handed. They're still really good right-handed hitters. But Darvish has been getting swings and misses this year. That hasn't been a problem. Against righties, he has he's limited the power. He's allowed a 151 expected ISO to righties compared to 282 to lefties. He's expensive. Like in cash games, I'm not going to get there, but in tournaments, if we do expect to see a lot of ownership going to Carlos Carrasco, I think that pivoting to Darvish is a reasonable play because I think he's really, really risky. Like the Cardinals are scary. He's scary. All of that's scary, but he does have really good strikeout stuff. He still misses a ton of bats and he's facing a very right-handed heavy lineup. So assuming that he doesn't come in at projected ownership similar to Carrasco, I have some interest.
All right, and that's absolutely fair here. I'm going to call up some of the other pricing on the other sites, but thus far, Darvish is 8,200 there on FanDuel. He is 34, which is absolutely reasonable on Yahoo, which is going to make things interesting there. Now, the one thing you do want to remember on Yahoo is they run from they're going to start an all-day slate at 1, an all-day slate at 4, 6 o'clock to the rest of the slate, 7 o'clock to the rest of the slate, 8 o'clock to the rest of the slate. They always run from whenever they start through the rest of the slate. So that's a unique thing there. We want to give them a shout out because, of course, they are one of the presenting sponsors here at Osmo, and they do cover the Early Bird podcast. So if you have not yet signed up for Yahoo, you can use the promo code OSMO to get yourself a $30 deposit bonus match available in Yahoo Sports rewards points, which are as good as cash and can be used immediately. If you go to the Yahoo or the Osmo homepage, click on the Yahoo strategy article. If you just go up to articles, scroll down to baseball, click on that, and come in on our promo code. That helps us out. Using the promo code works, but the link helps us. The promo code just helps you guys, but help us, help them, and then we'll get the contest up there a little bit bigger again, and we will, of course, start to do some more fun things with them as we go through. Looking on the other side, I know that you are not a fan of Michael Wacha. He has a difficult matchup here, I would say, against the Cubs because we're looking at potential Daniel Descalso leading off. I mean, that just improves their lineup here a lot for the Cubs. Of course, this is his first year with Chicago. He was formerly of Arizona. And then you have the stalwarts in Bryant, Rizzo, Baez, probably Contreras since it was a 2 o'clock game. He should be in the lineup here for Saturday afternoon. And then we'll see who appears between Hayward, Zobrist, Bodie, Schwarber, cast of thousands. That can be in there depending on what Joe Madden thinks. But talk to me a little bit here about Michael Wacha. We do only have 8 pitchers to choose from.
Yeah, coming off of a really good start. Still not, I'm not looking to really roster him here. The Cubs don't have a lot of strikeouts in their lineup. They do have plenty of good hitters. I don't love picking on Wacha. If I have to choose one side, I would take Cubs bats. But I think I'm most interested in looking to one-offs here, mostly with right-handed power. So Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, Wilson Contreras, I think makes for a really nice mini stack. Wacha's best pitch is his changeup. That's what he gets the most swinging strikes on. And it's a pitch that's more effective against left-handed hitters. So since the start of last season, he's held lefties to an expected ISO of 156 compared to 183 for righties. 349 expected WOBA to righties is higher than his expected WOBA to lefties. His swinging strike percentage is lower to righties. I think that it sets up as a nice spot for the trio in the middle of right-handed power.
All right, and then the one thing we want to think about Wacha, he's had a couple different injury stints. When he first came up, he was phenomenal. If you go back and look at his first 2-ish seasons, the numbers are very surprising compared to what he has been recently. But if we look at just 2017 and 2018, he faced 1,100 batters, 500 lefties, allowing just a 122 ISO, and 560 righties, allowing just a 150 ISO. So he tends to allow a little more power. And after the last injury, which gets him into the 2018 and this year, he's slipped a little bit still. But he is a reasonably good pitcher. But I don't want to say reverse splits because he's really actually solid. But if you're going to get to him, it's somebody that has righty power. And of course, Bryant and Baez can really fit the bill with that one. On to our next, I should say weather here. 60 degrees at first pitch. Looks like there is no wind conditions as of now in the Windy City, but they do not have the implied run totals yet, just because that is how they handle Chicago. Our second game here is going to be the Seattle Mariners, and we have Mike Leake going against Carlos Carrasco. The Mariners, Well, remember when they were 13-2? They are no longer 13-2. They're barely above 500, and now they are having to ask questions of why are they slipping. Adam, this is all sequencing. If they had kind of floated just above 500 for the whole season and not gone on that big tear at the beginning of the year, they would be considered plucky. Right
Right.
now, they're considered a disappointment. And I had been saying, for those first 15 games, they cannot all be on a hot streak for the entire year, and we're sort of seeing a lot of them come back to earth. Now they do have some solid batters, not a lot of weak outs in their lineup, and they've turned over a lot of their players now that they have no more Nelson Cruz, no more Robbie Cano, no more Gene Segura, but they've got oh, why am I blanking? Lefty Mr. Mets. Jay Bruce is back. Or is with them now, so that's an intriguing lefty power bat. They do have Edwin Encarnacion. They have Dan Vogelbach, who has phenomenal lefty-righty power, but they're going against Carlos Carrasco here, so not really an easy one. The implied run total is just 3.5 for the Mariners. It's 5.1 for Cleveland. We'll talk about Mike Leake in a second, but what is your assessment of one Carlos Carrasco?
It's a scary matchup for him. And if he is going to get a lot of ownership in tournaments, then I think leveraging against him with the Mariners because of how much power they have makes a lot of sense. But I also think that Carrasco is the number one pitcher on the slate. I think he's better than Darvish is. And there are strikeouts in the Seattle lineup. There's a lot of power, but plenty of strikeouts. Carrasco has had some issues this year, but swing and miss stuff has been there with a 13.5% swinging strike rate, 32% chase percentage on pitches out of the zone. He's also had some tough matchups. He's faced Houston. He's already faced Seattle once. He faced Minnesota his first start of the season. In that start against Seattle, he actually had his best plate discipline numbers of the year, 17.6% swinging strike percentage, 37.7% chase percentage on pitches out of the zone. Against right-handed hitters so far this season, 17% swinging strike percentage. He has given up power to both sides of the plate, and that's really concerning here. And that's why I think in tournaments, going to some of these Seattle bats makes sense, because it's a 4-game slate and you're going to see bumped up ownership. But in cash games, Carrasco's my number one.
All right, and let's see. Most sites have him listed. If you go to Yahoo, he's not in the they don't have a Cleveland designated starter yet at this point, but he is 44 there. If we look at the other pitchers, again, this is the all-day slate. That 44 is checking in right there with Derek Rodriguez. Yeah, that shouldn't be happening. But that is the neat thing about Yahoo. If you understand their pricing, and if you can look at their tightly grouped pitchers, pick out the ones that you think are better. Now, a lot of times these are going to be some less than household names grouped in with some guys you're going to know. You want to kind of look at some of those less than common names, because oftentimes they'll be in slightly better spots than the public will initially believe. And you want to remember that the big feeder thing here from Yahoo is their season-long guys, and that's what they're catering to with their pricing and with the way they do things and with the way they're marketing things. They have a 10 entry maximum for any of their contests, and then it's no more than 3% of the overall play of the overall entries, but capped at 10. So they have no uploads. So you're not going to get these mass multi-entry players there. You can utilize optimizers, which is what I do when I'm playing on Yahoo, but you still have to enter them by hand. The one good thing about using the optimizers is you will find these, I don't want to say mispriced players, but differently priced players than what they are on FanDuel or DK or Fantasy Draft. You're not going to be able to just lift and shift your player pool, which is kind of nice because this also gives you some differentiation if you choose Yahoo as your main site or as your secondary site. And then their management fees are capped at 12.5%, whereas most of the GPPs in the industry are up to almost 16% now, 15.8 to 16.1. So that does add up over the course of a season. So just want to call that out there. Before we get to the bats, Adam, what are your thoughts here on Mike Leake, who, and I've said this starting last year and a little bit more this year, his strikeouts are up for him, but we have 12 years of sample size saying he's not a strikeout guy, though things have ticked up just a little bit. I think him being in no longer Safeco Field, T-Mobile Park for the last season and change has helped him out, and he has just been getting by on guile. What do you think about him, since we do only have 8 pitchers to choose from?
He's Yeah, I'm not going there. I don't buy into him. He still has a sub 10% swinging strike percentage to both sides of the plate. He's allowed power so far this year, which is an issue for him. He doesn't miss bats, so if his location isn't good, then the ball gets hit a really long way. I'd rather look to a very reasonably priced Jose Ramirez. You have Leonis Martin, Francisco Lindor. You have some power left-handed bats in this lineup. Nice price tags on Jake Bauers and Jason Kipnis, most likely hitting like 6th and 7th in the order. I think Cleveland's a pretty appealing stack here against Leake.
All right, I'm guaranteeing a Jake Bauers home run because I just dropped him on 2 of my season-long teams because I got tired of waiting around. Adam. So there we are. You know this is how it works. We make disparaging comments or drop somebody, and then they come through because, hey, it's baseball. Looking at any of the Mariners' bats, you kind of mentioned one-offs. Can you hit that just one more time here now that I've got everything pulled up together? Again, I like Vogelbach, Jay Bruce, and to a lesser extent, Edwin Revenge Encarnacion, I think is how we pronounce his name.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce is my favorite Seattle bat. The Mariners are actually pretty expensive here, which should make them even lower owned, even though it's a 4-game slate. So you'll actually get leverage on Carrasco ownership in tournaments, and you'll be contrarian because who the hell's paying $5K plus for an entire stack against Carlos Carrasco? But it's, when you get that much upside in your lineup and it's contrarian on a 4-game slate, that's pretty appealing. So Bruce at 4,500 on DraftKings is my favorite. I think that going to the bottom of the order for some discounted guys makes sense too. Ryan Healy probably batting 8th or 9th, still a big time power bat. Only 4,100 on DraftKings. You get some stolen base upside from D. Gordon. So, there's different ways to go, but as far as one-offs, Jay Bruce is my favorite.
All right, game number 3 here. We have the Kansas City Royals in Detroit continuing their series. We have Homer Bailey going against Tyson Ross, who had his start pushed back from earlier this week. It's going to be 61 here at first pitch. No discernible wind. We have no run totals just yet. Homer Bailey been, I think Aerosmith said it best, living on the edge. Song well before your time. But can we really go to someone like Homer Bailey as an SP2, or would you prefer going to Tyson Ross on DraftKings? $200 separates them. $6,200 for Bailey. $6,400 for Ross. I'm not really interested in either one on FanDuel, for the record.
I expect I'll have some of both just because of their price tags and because they're both facing teams that strike out a lot. The problem with Bailey is that Detroit is primarily right-handed, and his best pitch, his swing and miss pitch, is his splitter, changeup, whatever you want to call it. And he throws it a little bit more often to lefties. It's more effective. It gets more swinging strikes against lefties. So it's a little bit scary. Like guys like Nick Castellanos, I think grade out well against Bailey, but he's still cheap enough, and there are enough just bad hitters in the Detroit lineup that I have some interest. And then on the other side for Tyson Ross, you get most likely 6 right-handed hitters in the lineup for Kansas City, which is good because Ross is at his best against righties. The problem is that Ross has been bad throughout his entire career at holding runners, and you're talking about a Kansas City team that is built to steal. Mondesi, Merrifield, Billy Hamilton, Alex Gordon to an extent, Chris Owings, these guys all run. And so a lot of these guys that get on against Ross are going to steal bases. So it's going to make it really difficult for him to limit runs if guys get on base. So obviously, pretty sizable risks in both guys and plenty of hitters that I like here. But with it being a 4-game slate, with them both being cheap, I am sure I'll end up with some in tournaments.
All right, a couple of notes here. I'd done a look at Detroit for Friday's game because I was intrigued by them as a potential stacking option. And yes, Castellanos, absolutely. Nico Goodrum, sure. The next 2 guys would be Heimer Candelario and Miggy Cabrera. Well, Miggy Cabrera, he was hurt most of last season, but he was on pace. If he had played, about 550, 600 plate appearances, he would have projected to be just under 10 home runs and about 80 RBI. This season, if we project him out for 500 to 600 at bats, he's looking at 6 home runs and about 60 RBI. He has said he's not going to play injured, and he's not going to play in pain like he did last year. And I went back and looked at some of the game logs, and he missed, of course, the bulk of the last half, if not 2/3 of the season. He had played the beginning of the year, missed a chunk of time, came back for 4 or 5 games, and then missed the rest of the season. So he's no longer the Miguel Cabrera, the Triple Crown winner. He's 36. Just be careful when you're going to him. He is absolutely fine on a 4-game slate like this, but I don't know that we're getting even a 25 home run type guy anymore with Miguel Cabrera. Now, this is a good matchup for him against Bailey, but I just caution that. And then Candelario, I'm trying to remember. I don't think he has a home run yet this year. I think he has like a triple and half a dozen doubles. Last year, he kind of broke out with 19 home runs, but we're not seeing that at all this season. So just keep that in mind. And I like to look at most of the sample sizes I'm looking at this point in the year date back for batters to the beginning of last season, because I just need a lot of track record. But we're at about the point in time where I don't know that it's actionable data just with what are we, like 35 36 days into the season. I don't know that it's actionable data yet, but it's something to keep in mind that, wow, if they're tailing off that much like these two guys are, you do want to weigh that in when you're making some decisions and not just go with the name value. And they're probably priced appropriately, if not a little expensive for what they've done this season. So I did want to make mention of that. Anything else from this game that you would like to call on, Adam?
Just a reminder that there's a ton of stolen base upside for Kansas City.
Yeah, and not to bury the lead. You're right. You mentioned 4 or 5 guys there that definitely have speed, and 3 of them are relatively elite. Now, Billy Hamilton, as they say, you can't steal first base, but boy, if he gets on a couple times during the game, you have a shot at a 2 or 3 stolen base game from him. Of course, it could be 2 or 3 days between him getting on base, but the potential is there, and that's what we're looking for in our tournaments. Rounding out here on the final game of our 4-game 4 o'clock slate, this is the 6 o'clock game. You have Mike Soroka, who checks in at one of the more expensive pitchers. He is the 3rd most expensive pitcher on Yahoo at 46. He is coming in at 8,900 here on DraftKings, and then on FanDuel he is 9,900, which has him 100 below Carlos Carrasco. That's going to make for some interesting decision points. Now, Adam, he does have essentially a dream matchup. He's going against the Marlins in Marlin Park. What do you think about the relative newcomer, Mike Soroka?
I like him a lot. The price tag has increased quickly, which is obviously a problem. But if like Darvish is in a really difficult matchup, Carrasco is in a scary spot. And then you get Soroka going into Miami, a favorable pitcher's park, against a right-handed heavy lineup that is not very good. And I think that there's a pretty good argument for Soroka either as your SP2, if you can find cheap bats on whatever site you're playing on, or even as an SP1, taking a little bit of the savings off of Carrasco or Darvish, or like I was talking about stacking against Carrasco in tournaments. Using Soroka as your SP1, I think is perfectly fine. So far this season, he's thrown 178 pitches to righties. He has a 14% swinging strike percentage. He's thrown his slider 30% of the time to an almost 17% swinging strike percentage. Since last season, he's thrown 370 pitches to righties. He's held them to a 290 expected WOBA and an expected ISO just below 100. So, the stuff has played in the major leagues. He has very good command and, good enough stuff that as long as he's not missing his spots, which he normally is not, he is a good pitcher. So I like Soroka quite a bit.
All right. On the other side, we have Trevor Richards, who is an intriguing pitcher at home. I'm just not sure this is the team to do it against because there really are no easy outs with the Atlanta Braves here. Miami has a 3.6 implied run total. Atlanta's at 4.5. Because it's only 8 pitchers, I'll probably have in my lineup somewhere between 15-ish%. I would say between 12 and 18. So we'll settle on 15 on my 2 pitcher sites here for my 150 lineups with Richards. What do you want to do with regards to Atlanta? And I know we've talked about this a few times, and I know Atlanta is Josh's favorite team, and he says they're always tough to get to. I love Atlanta as stacks because not a lot of people go there, and they do have, their first 4 generally are three different infield positions an outfielder, and then depending on who's catching and where they're putting in Nick Markakis, potentially their first five batters can be at 4 to 5 different positions. So that's very useful. Do you want to go with a 5-man stack, though? I think this feels more like a 3-man stack range against Richards, who is a serviceable pitcher, and it is a good ballpark for pitching there in Miami. What are your thoughts here for Atlanta?
I doubt I'll get to too much Atlanta. I have a lot of respect for Richards. He does have one of the best changeups in baseball. He throws at the hitters from both sides of the plate. And as long as he's not getting behind in counts, he can be pretty decent. I don't love taking pitchers against Atlanta. And Atlanta is actually one of the cheaper stacks on this slate, which is unusual. But at the same time, I like the upside that we get from Kansas City and Detroit. I like the leverage we get from Seattle. I like the spot for Cleveland. And it's still not a favorable hitter's park. So not really in love with Atlanta. I will say that I think $4,400 on DraftKings for Ronald Acuna is a really good price point. Richards, when he does struggle, it does tend to be with right-handed power. And Acuna obviously has plenty of it. So that would be my favorite one-off from the Braves.
Right, and then looking to Atlanta here, we know that Neil Walker still day-to-day. He's been dealing with the hamstring issue. He has not played. Let's see. He's had the pinch hit appearances on the 30th, the 27th, but the last time he started was the 25th. So we'll have to see what happens with him being in the lineup. My guess is he's probably out, but even if he's in, I don't really want to go with him. But amongst their healthy guys, we're probably looking at Curtis Granderson, the venerable Curtis Granderson, who is, oh my gosh, am I on? Oh, I'm on FanDuel pricing. Let me get back here. I thought he was going to be $2,700. Okay, he's $3,700. That's still an intriguing price point there for Granderson. You get Martin Prado, $3,200. He is eligible at both corner infield positions. You get Brian Anderson at $3,500. He is actually solid against righties. Tough one there going against Soroka, but $3,500 at third base or outfield. He's a guy that could be the straw that stirs the drink, as they say. And then you have Starlin Castro, who, by the way, Castro, this is a righty matchup against lefties for his last 450 at bats. I looked this up yesterday. Castro has a 115 isolated power against lefties. Now, generally in his career, he's been a little bit better against righties, but Castro at this point is coasting on name value alone. Is there anybody that you want here from the Marlins? And who the hell is Isaac Galloway? There's a name I don't recognize.
No, I do not. Curtis Granderson would be the one guy that I have some interest in. And Isaac Galloway, if I remember correctly, is really fast, but that could be wrong.
All right. Well, regardless, not an exciting spot here to take any of the hitters. Again, we're down to 8 teams in our player pool, but they just have a 3.6 implied run total. So those would be your one-offs that help you get the rest of your otherwise perfect lineup here. One other reminder, we do have a couple announcements here at Osmo. If you go to the Osmo homepage, you can see that we are doing some horse racing now. We have brought on a new horse racing expert, and of course we have Ben Rasa, who grew up essentially at the tracks. His parents are both avid fans of the ponies, as he likes to say, and he loves his horses. So he's been making his living the last few years alongside DFS, college football, college basketball, and NFL betting, and the ponies. Now, here's why I want to call this out. We have some deposit bonuses at both of these spots. Now, one of them will give you a $20 free bet along with a $100 deposit match. The other one will give you, if you sign up, they'll give you $100 in credit. The one thing you want to keep in mind is and this is an interesting thing that I was not aware of until today, some of the states that don't allow sports betting are allowing wagering on mobile devices for the horses, because it's under a different carve out and a different category. And most of you all know you have horse tracks, in most of the states where you're at. They do allow some mobile betting in states. It's not just off-track betting at this point. So I want to throw that out there. If you're into the most exciting 2 minutes of the year as they build the Kentucky Derby, that will be on Saturday. I think the race is going to be usually it's around 5 or so Eastern when that goes off. Now, it's a sloppy track. There's been a lot of rain there in the area, so we'll have to see how that transpires. And of course, for the Kentucky Derby, I was talking to my mom. This is the information from my mom, Adam, because I hadn't been following along. But she said, yeah, the favorite horse is out, and she said she thinks the second favorite horse is out too. How does my mom know this stuff? She doesn't do anything related to sports. And tonight we spent 5 minutes talking about the Kentucky Derby. Who knew? Who knew? She did say she likes mint juleps, though, Adam.
Don't we all?
I guess until you taste one, they're a little stronger than the name mint julep implies. Actually, they're a lot stronger than that. But just check that out there on Osmo. You can go to the homepage and you just look for the photos that have pictures of horse racing. Click on those and they'll give you all the details that you need. Any final thoughts, Adam, as we free up our people to get along with their Friday night or early Saturday errands?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. Once again, reminder, 11:15, the DFS Strategy Show. Jake and I will go game by game through every single game on the slate. And then again at 6 o'clock, you're going to get the rundown for the 10-game main slate. That will be Chris Baggs and myself. And then Sunday, I think 10 o'clock, you'll get all of the main slate action broken down game by game along with Josh Engelman. So with that, we're going to get on out of here. I am on Twitter at EMACDFS with 10,000 followers. Adam, on my birthday, I got 10,000 followers. Who knew? One hell of a day. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS, and it is Osimo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.